my firstborn was, I think, 6 years old, I was reading a book and he was like, yeah, I like it, blah, blah. But how comes all these characters are white? They don't look like me.
There's an idea that you have to either go to the UK or to the US in order to make it, which I don't blame them for, because you can see those examples in the UK and the US.
Right. I saw how powerful many of them were. They were working, succeeding. And this is for me the first time that I realized, wow, look what we can achieve, because I didn't know it's possible when I was here.
There's not that many successful Black Germans that are openly out there. I understand that it's a German culture to not lift yourself up too much, but I don't think we have the luxury of doing that. Where do you think that is, in your opinion? This conversation is brought to you by Brim's Bottles, African inspired. Get yours today at brimsbottles.com. Now back to the show. Good morning. It is such a pleasure to have you here.
Good morning.
I've imagined this day.
Oh, really?
If you would believe that.
No.
I have.
Really?
I've actually imagined it. Yeah, because my daughter's a fan. So I get to read your books almost every evening.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. When she says, Daddy, book, that's the book she's going to go get.
God,
and every evening when you flip to the last page, she asks me, who's that? And I say, that's Dayan. And then who's that? And then there's a lady who does the actual artwork.
Right,
I can't remember her name today. So I just point them out. That's Dayan. She wrote the book. And that's the lady who drew the book. So I'm very, very happy to have you here today. And honored that you want to talk to me. So
Thank
welcome.
you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Obviously, you are a well-known, or I'll let you do it. You can do the introduction.
Really?
Yes,
I should do it.
You can do the introduction.
Well,
you can do it better than I
I'm
can.
Dayan Kodua. I was born in Ghana, raised in Kiel. I work as an actress and an author, writing children's books, and I have a publishing company in Germany.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit more about your publishing company and the kind of books that you publish.
I publish children's book. My focus is to empower the young kids. My focus is to create something that they can see themselves growing up. And I pretty much like the chance of giving them something to look up to while they're growing up, because I didn't have that when I was little. So I would say it's not just a children's book, or it's more like something that parents always have to gather their kids to focus on, and that's self-love, to be more confident in life, have dreams, and also for the kids to know it doesn't end just only to have a dream. You also have to know to do something for it. So those are like the topics I pretty like covering in my books.
That's very interesting, because for me, one of the most important things for me raising my daughters is to make sure that they have like representation, visual representation of people or characters that look like them.
Right.
And I think your book is one of the things that makes that job easier for me. Because she loves reading it and she loves looking at it, and it's good to see that she gets to see herself.
Right.
Sometimes she calls the characters herself, her name.
I love it.
So she gets to see herself within other characters, which is something that was very big for me, especially looking on TV, and there's hardly anything that looks like them.
Yeah,
so,
true. Yeah, that's
definitely
right.
appreciated.
Yeah.
Where was the idea or the passion coming from for you?
Basically, I've been always telling stories as an actress. Either I did TV or stage, and it happened actually when my firstborn was, I think, 6 years old. I was reading a book, and he was like, "Yeah, I like it, blah blah, but how comes all these characters are white? They don't look like me." And I was just like, well, it didn't hit me right away, but it hit me when I was in bed. I'm like, damn it.
Yeah.
wow, did you hear what what your kid just told you?
Yeah.
And I remember because it was like a mirror. Because when I was little, I remember I asked my father, like, why all these books are all white people? And he was like, a black African man. He was like, yeah, because we're in Germany and it's normal that, all the books have white characters. And I think I was maybe 13 or so. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. So that was done for me. And so fast forward to experience that. And I was like, okay, because I always say to myself, be the change you want to see. So there was something I'm like, okay, so what you gonna do? Are you just gonna let it flow like it happened with you, when you were little? Or can you do something? And so this is where I started writing a book. And I'm like, what do you want to read? So because I didn't know how to write children's book, I'm like, oh, I would like to read about my story when I was little in Ghana. And I remember I wished a black baby doll and I never got it. So this is where the idea for my first book actually came up, just to write something for myself and for my son. And with that, my first book, it took me a long time, 9 years.
9 years.
9 years for me to publish my first book, and that was Odo. So Odo portrays basically my life as a young kid in Ghana. Just the difference is Odo received a doll in the book. I never received it. I bought myself a doll when I was, like 5 years ago. And so this is where the idea came. And so when the first book came out, people, were welcoming it. And I'm like, okay, so just stick with it and look where it brings you. I have to say it was 2019. So all my film work were canceled. I was gonna go shoot in Russia, a big movie. They canceled it. My theater, like everything was canceled. So I'm like, okay, so you got nothing to do. Just stick here and try to focus on what you can do now. And this is where, more and more idea came. And then I wrote the second book and then third, and then I could see myself, doing more. And then I started buying rights from other publishers. And so now I have like almost 20 books in my publishing company.
That is awesome.
Just from this crazy idea.
That is awesome. We'll get back to the books for a second, but I was surprised when I was doing a little bit of research on you to read that you were actually an actress. Obviously, I'm not from Germany. I haven't lived there too long, so I haven't seen you in anything. Can you tell me a little bit more about that and how that was for you?
Well, I finished, I think, gymnasium. I don't know the English version.
I know what that is.
Know what that is. Okay, good. And
school,
then
basically, for those who don't know, it's a higher level of school.
Right. And then when I finished, my father thought I was going to be a lawyer or study medicine, use like normal for African parents. And I remember I was like, no, I'm moving to Berlin. I'm gonna go study acting. And he was like, what is that? But what my parents really taught me is they're very strict, because my father was, Army Ghana soldier.
Jesus.
So my father was very strict. But what they taught me was just go for what you want and do it right. So I moved to Berlin, and I remember my father was like, but don't call us for money. If you think you're grown up now, take care of yourself. So I moved to Berlin. I went to acting school. And of course, I struggled, trying to find this job. And I was lucky enough to experience different ways of entertainment. Because when I moved there, I started dancing for artists, because I met this choreographer. He was very big, Detlef Zost. And so I started working for Master P, Nelly, like the big stars when they come to Germany. And then, of course, German stars. And then I realized, oh, okay, so you have fun dancing. So this is where I actually started the whole show business, and then one comes to other, and then I did modeling and I did that. So those were things that I knew could support me finance my acting school. So I did the dancing, and then came to singing, and I sang really for big names. And then I finished my acting school 2004, and then I moved to the US. And so this is something like I really wanted always to do, but I didn't know how to get there. But I knew the first step for me is to educate myself in that field. And fast forward, 5 years to USA, I learned a lot about myself, about the acting in general. And then I came back 2009. And I pretty much do like, ZDF, Krimi, all these German productions, which is amazing because I get to do something that I love. I know it's not easy because I remember when I finished my acting school here in Germany, there were nothing for me, like no job at all. And most jobs that I got offered were, all these cliche role, like, the foreigner cleaning, or you're a prostitute, something like that. I'm like,
the stereotypical ones.
Yeah, I'm like, nice. But to be honest, I did that because there were nothing, there was nothing for me to do. So I did that. And the older I got, the more experienced I became. I was like, okay, yo, you did that. I'm very good. Like I'm a very, very good actress that can play the refugee and all that. But there's more to that. So this is where I started selecting, like, what do I want to do? Where do I see myself? What can I say yes to? And the next day look into the mirror and see myself and say, okay, you did a good thing. And it's sometimes, it's not easy, but I love it. And I have been blessed to really do great, great, great projects.
That's very interesting. I have a bit of a concern sometimes when it comes to a lot of Germans, Black Germans, to be specific. And I find that not a lot of people have the drive you've just explained.
Okay.
I think there is not, because I feel like there's usually not people to look up to who are boldly saying, this is what I do, this is how I did it.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's not a lot of Black people for Black Germans to look up to.
Okay.
So a lot of people usually lack a certain amount of drive that you usually find in the US and UK and other places like that. Where do you think you got that drive from? You just mentioned that your dad told you a few things, but where does that innate drive and forcefulness come from?
I think it started when I was little because I came here not knowing anything about life in Germany, of course. How do I? How could I? And my father was a very respected man in Ghana. He was at the Air Force, so he was a pilot, engineer. My mom had a huge store in Ghana. So when I got here, I didn't see my father moved to Germany when I was 2. So I didn't have any picture of my father. I saw actually my father the first time when I got here. And so when I got here, and then I realized with the time, all our neighbors, very educated Black people, were cleaning. And I remember my mom, who I saw as a supermodel, like she's beautiful, amazing, tall, beautiful woman. She lost the light. And this is what I saw when I got here. And so with the time I realized it's because they gave up so many things for me to flourish, for me and my sister. And this is what I realized about all this Black community that we have in Kiel, where I was brought up. And I remember when I was little, like 14, we had to sometimes, my father couldn't do his work as as engineer because they didn't accept his education. And so he had to go to school and do something completely different. And sometimes he would take out all his, diploma and look at them. And I saw that it's really tough. Like, it hurts. And then sometimes we would have to, accompany my parents when they go cleaning. And I realized, I was like, I will never want to do this. Like, my sister, I'm like, we cannot do this. Like, this is not for us. I know it's not for my mom, it's not for my father, but they had to do something else for us to feel good. And this is where the first drive started. But along the way, I lost myself, which is normal in Germany. And I came back to my sense, I would say, when I went to the US. Because this is for me the first time that I realized that I'm blessed. Because at my acting school in the US, there were so many brilliant, talented people that could make it there. And I knew that if they could make it there, they had to go back home. And when you go back home, you work, you get married, and it's your dream is that. And a lot of them had a life of poverty, more poverty, gang, it was completely different than my life here. Even though not everything was easy, but I could not compare myself to them. But at the same time, I saw how powerful many of them were. They were just doing their stuff. They were working, succeeding. And this is for me the first time that I realized, he's a doctor. He's a CEO of this company. And I took this drive and came back and I'm like, wow, look what we can achieve, because I didn't know it's possible when I was here. And I've always learned to just do my stuff. Like, I cannot rely on anybody because I did it many times, like when you rely on somebody and you think he or she thinks the same as you do, and it's not like that. You get angry, or you feel like, oh, why did it go that way? So I try to do the things that I think is good for me. And if I think I need people for that, I choose wisely. And like, I always want people around me who want to see the best in themselves, and of course in myself as well. And I'm very intuitive. So if I don't feel like the energy is right, I'd rather be alone than being around people who really drain my energy. And this is where I put my focus to. I just do, because I think I can't forget what my parents did for me, just coming here and leaving everything behind, and, doing jobs that my father wouldn't ever, ever. Like, if somebody would tell my father, like, when he was 30, you would do this. When you're 40, 45, he'd be like, you out of your mind. Crazy, and he did it just for me to have food on the table. So I thought, personally, I thought it's kind of, I have a responsibility to focus on achieving something for myself first, because I know when I'm happy, my parents are happy too. And this is what drives me.
That sounds amazing. I had a similar thing when I got to London, and when I first kind of got to London old enough to understand what's going on. I think I was about 13 maybe. And my mom had a night job, and I think on my second day she took me to the night job, and it was cleaning. And I was blessed in Ghana to live with what some would say a pretty wealthy family. My auntie, and who is my mom, because she raised me. And there was a lot of luxuries that we had. So seeing my mom coming to London and thinking that I was about to, walk on streets of gold, as they told us. Of
course, yeah.
So I went with her, and then she was cleaning.
Wow.
And for a second, it broke me. I'd never told her this. And I thought to myself, no, like, okay, I've heard too many good things about this place for this to be the reality.
Yes.
First of all, the flat that we lived, she lives in, she refuses to leave. The flat that she lives in at that time, is much better now. At that time, we were packing my bags into the lift, and someone had peed in the lift.
Oh, jeez.
And from what I was living in Ghana to this, I was like, this cannot be the Europe that I heard about.
This is definitely the Europe.
So it was very eye-opening to me. And you said something that I want a lot of people who are either in Africa or elsewhere who are watching this podcast to take into consideration about the education, your qualification that you have in Ghana or wherever it is that you're coming from might not be recognized in Germany, and you might start all over again.
I think it's getting better. They have changed some system, but I'm not very into that. But for many people, they have to start from zero.
So it's always good to kind of do that research before you come to Germany. I just want people to understand that.
And the language, because there's so many educated people all over the world from Africa, and they come here and they can't do what God has given them to do, like your talent, because if you don't speak the language, it's like you don't have life. And people always forget that. Like, I have cousins, they're like, yeah, we want to come to Germany. I'm like, what you gonna do here? Do this and that. I'm like, you guys don't understand. I would rather support you in Ghana and you build up a business in Ghana than coming here. Because, we call this bureaucratie, it takes forever to get where you want to go. And so this is where I always try to, I'm like, come here for holidays.
Absolutely.
But I don't think like you want to come here and stay here, because it's different. Like, I remember my cousin was like, but why are you still there? And I'm like, I'm still here because I was raised here. Like, I would get lost when I go to Ghana tomorrow, because I would have to start from zero. Here I have built up something, and you cannot compare. It's like if I would move to Japan tomorrow, like, we all have to start from the scratch, and then I would have to learn a different language. And I think if we understand and if we are ready to work on ourselves, then it's it's not always going to be easy, but we're going to have a maybe better access for a new life wherever we go.
And you also touched on something that I found also interesting. The idea, and I still have this when I speak to other people, like younger people or people around millennials, that there's an idea that you have to either go to the UK or to the US in order to make it, which I don't blame them for, because you can see those examples in the UK and in the US.
Right.
In your opinion, when do you think Germany is going to get to that level? And I say this because apart from you and a few other people that I have encountered, be it on social media or in my day-to-day activity on this podcast, there's not that many successful Black Germans that are openly out there saying, this is me, I'm successful, this is what I do, and this is how I did it. And I am proud of that fact. And I understand that it's a German culture to not be too, to not lift yourself up too much in public. But I don't think we have the luxury of doing that. Where do you think that is, in your opinion? And how does that get better?
I think, first of all, it gets better if we learn to know who we are. I think this is the basic. Like, I have no problem going out there and doing my stuff. Like, and I think it's in order for the younger ones to know what is doable, what is what is out there for them to do later, is when we set up and be out there, outspoken, and try, of course, to lift the other ones up. This is, I believe, that's something that we own to ourselves, because I don't think it really makes sense for ones to be like, okay, I'm here and it's all about me, and of course it's all about you, but you always have to think about, who can I take with me? Like, when you get the chance to open the door, who are you gonna take with you? Are you just gonna open the door and get in and close it behind you so nobody can get in? And this is, I think it's a mentality thing. And I think it's something that every single person can look into him or herself and think, what can I do to uplift somebody else, or what can I do to open this door and hopefully I can let somebody get into. And of course, it's also something with if I know who I am, like if I haven't lost my identity of who I am, then it's easier to flourish, to be out there, and also to communicate that people hear you and understand you. And I think there are so many successful Black people in Germany.
Yeah.
Really, there are so many. But you don't see them because, I wouldn't say everybody, but some of them don't really know their identity. And personally, I think you can be very successful if you don't have your identity, if you don't know who you are. It just doesn't communicate well. It's like the energy is not very, nice.
Awesome. It's interesting that you mentioned identity, because one of my other concerns, being in Germany and the things I've observed, and some would say I'm not even qualified to speak on it, but nobody's speaking on it, so I will.
Okay.
I think that a lot of people in Germany, Black people in Germany, have an issue with the term Black German. They consider themselves African.
Okay.
Which is wonderful. I consider myself Ghanaian. I consider myself African.
Yeah.
However, I also consider myself Black British.
Right.
Because I understand that as a collective of Ghanaians, Nigerians, Jamaicans, Trinis, Bajans, Brazilians, as a collection of all these Black people in the UK, together, we're stronger.
Definitely.
Than living in our little country bubbles.
Yeah.
So when we come together as all these collectives, and we all know where we're from.
Yeah.
Trust me, we do.
Yeah.
And we call ourselves Black British. We're not, and this is the pushback I get, we're not trying to fit into the white society by doing that.
Okay.
We're trying to collectively brand ourselves. So even when a Ghanaian does something, it connects with every single other African, Caribbean, Black person in the UK. And what that means is we're able to build our own music genres. We're able to build our own Netflix movies. We're able to build our own things that is recognizably Black British. And we can all enjoy it.
Yeah.
That way we have some sort of cultural power, cultural stable in the United Kingdom. Germans don't have that.
No, we don't.
And I think it's because they're trying to separate themselves into, I'm Ghanaian, I'm Nigerian, I'm this, I'm that, I'm African. And they don't really embrace, a lot of them don't embrace the Black German identity. That's my observation. What do you think?
What do I think? Well, first of all, of course, UK have a different history. Like, you remember, the whole people from Jamaica who were there before, they build up something great. And I think it's a different basic of confidence what Black British have. And here, I think we're still struggling to get there. And you're right. Like, I experience, somebody would be like, oh, I'm doing this. Instead of collectively supporting it, I feel like everybody is like, okay, I'm doing my own thing. I am doing my own thing. And then sometimes you have an event, same topic, but 5 different people from different places in Africa are doing it. And I think this is something, it's a mentality, and we need to work on it. And also I think it's because it's here, I have some friends, they're African German because, they're mixed or something. I consider myself as Ghanaian German because I am Ghanaian and I was raised here. Like, I dream in German. Everything is pretty much German. But at the same time, I never ever want to leave my culture behind,
Exactly.
And I think if we understand that, we can love both. We can love our culture. And if we love our culture, we can also learn to support each other. But with the supporting, I think it's a mentality thing. Um, I realize that sometimes when minorities, I wouldn't say only Black people, but if minorities think, oh, it's not enough for us, then people start, bringing out their elbow. Because I remember, like, when I was modeling, I would go to an agency, and then when you're the first one and you're lucky, they take you. And that's it. Like, no other Black girl get the chance to get in. And even today, as an actress, you have a role, and then you hear, oh, we already have one Black person. Like,
No way.
it's done. And so it's something that if we don't learn to know who we are and that we are enough and that there's enough there for everybody, if we don't learn that, we always think, okay, I'm going to do my own thing because it's mine and I can't share. And why should I support you? Why should I do that? And it's a process. But at the same time, I feel like Generation Z, how they call it, I think the younger people are doing it differently. I feel like they're more collective, they're more supportive. And the older, like in between our parents and us, we have to learn to come more together. And I believe maybe in 10, 15, 20 years, it's just going to be a different collective because I see it. Like all these young people, they're just like, oh, I want to do this and I'm just doing it. And I want to open this store and I open this salon and they just do it. And once they do it, I encourage us to go and support, like to go, go to the restaurant, created by a Black person who's, of course, it has to be good quality. It's very important. I just want to go nowhere if it's not, but we have to learn to be better. And I think when we do things that has quality, that is good, we learn, we automatically attract people who will come there and support us. But at the end of the day, I think it's something that we need to learn. We need to learn to be more together. We need to learn to understand that, hey, we are all in this boat together. Like if you're from Togo or from Nigeria, well, yeah, but we are all Black.
Yeah.
And if we don't support ourselves, like if you see your sister from wherever out there struggling, why don't you just give your hand and say, hey, I just help you? And I think it's something that we need to understand and we need to learn, and it takes really a long time.
Yeah, I agree with you. My hope was that because of the fact that the internet and social media exists and there's more information out there and there's more examples that you can see out there.
Right.
And if you take things like Afrobeats, for an example, that's a good example of how unity can make something from grassroots go that high.
Right.
I was hoping that people would see this and be a little bit more urgent about it, but
it takes time.
It takes time, yeah.
It takes time because it's all about, it's a mentality. It's the way you were raised. Like, you don't change from, you have to see. That's why I'm saying, be the change you want to see. If you see it and you realize and be like, okay, how do I want it? And then you have to go and be the change. And as long as we don't understand that, as long as we think, oh, it's not enough there, as long as we think, oh, I have to do, because, the thing is, the more people create their own thing without getting the support, the less successful we become because we're not strong enough. Like we like, what do we have? Nothing. Like, do we have our own big industry here? We don't have it because everybody is doing, like, everybody is baking small breads. How can we put the whole, we make a big bakery and then we serve it all over and everybody knows where they can get whatever they want? Like, for example, with my publishing company, my publishing company is the only publishing company in German speaking places like Austria and, Germany and wherever, that is from a Black woman and publish these kind of children books. We don't have it nowhere. So, and it's the same thing. We can collectively support this kind of, company that in 2, in 3, in 4 years, it's going to be easier for other people to do the same thing. But if we don't do it, if we don't collectively support each other, and it's like in everything we do, like having a hair brand, restaurant, coffee, whatever, we need to go there and support each other. And that's the only way we can, we can flourish and grow and let our children know, look, we need to support each other. And because we need each other in order to be successful. We can't do things by ourselves. And we need to understand that in order for us to change something for our kids. If not, we're just gonna, it's gonna go on like this for the next, I don't know, many years.
I like that. I like that perspective, and I like that hearing that from you. I think this will probably be the last time I touch on that topic on this podcast, because I have like pretty much almost episode, because it really gets to me.
Wow.
And I think it's also because I've had the privilege of seeing it like that in the UK, and the UK kind of built into the point where it's like you don't have to tell a Black person twice to support a Black person. We still have our issues, don't get it wrong, but we're more connected, and it's a beautiful thing to see, because now we get to have Netflix shows that blows up around the world. And it's unapologetically British, and you see all sorts of Black people from Ghana, Nigeria, Jamaica, and
it's amazing.
It's wonderful to see, and I want the same thing for Germany.
It's coming. It's it's really,
I believe you.
It's we're still we're still sleeping, but we're waking up. We're waking up. I think it's gonna get better. Yeah.
Awesome. So if we go back to your publishing, because you've said some few interesting things there to me. What is your publishing company at this point? Where would you say it's at? Is it in the building stage? Is it in the stage where you're ready to scale, or?
Where I pretty much want to scale.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, like when I started, I remember like, the big ones would be like laughing at me. And I remember like when they write an article, be like the book project, project in Germany is something like, okay, yeah, it's a hobby. And so I remember like I would have meetings and I always try to explain myself. And I'm like, no, it's not a project. Like, do you go to work and say it's a project? No, it's a work. And I spent so many hours and all my savings, like, I didn't come to you for any money. I didn't go to the bank for the money. I did everything by myself. And I want you guys to take it seriously. And so when I won 2 prizes last year, one was the publishing prize, Germany. And this is where people realize, okay, so she's not playing. I didn't say, invested everything to play. Sorry. So now I think, people are seeing it more, and I love quality. Like I really have great writers, and great stories. And that's what drives me. I love reading the stories by myself. And once I love what I'm reading, I believe that I would, touch people's heart with that. And it's not only stories that I write, it's of course, books that I write that I buy from all over the world. And so I believe that now they're seeing it, because what I always say to the big, publishing companies, like, my work is not trend. Diversity for me is not trend. It's not gonna go away, because I'm gonna look the way I look wherever I go. And my kids same. And I want people to see that, we can see ourselves in books. And so it's not like, in 6 months the trend is over, and so she's gonna do something else. Of course, I love my job as an actress, and I love it. I'll stick with it, and I'll do it. At the same time, I just love publishing books as well. And so it's where I'm just, it's like the leather, I just want to go to the next step. Yeah.
What does scaling look for you? What next will let you kind of see that, okay, this is, I'm on my way, or I'm scaling as I want to?
Well, I mean, like when you think about the whole publishing, business in Germany, they make like plus minus about 7.9 billion per year. Okay, I'm nowhere, but I want to be able to say, okay, we have like black numbers like the whole time, which it's coming. Like the last 5 years were like really tough because you invest and then everybody get paid, and I have to make sure, okay, just stick with it and make sure that you survive. And so now it's where like, okay, I know I have survived the last 5 years. So the next 5 years is where I want to make sure that I can say, okay, I'm on plus, where I can put something on the side to, of course, reinvest.
I'm going to do a shameless plug here, and also hopefully it helps your business.
Okay.
Because I obviously run a podcast and I produce a few podcast shows.
Okay.
Let me let you in on something that I've noticed is a trend. Storytelling podcasts. So podcasts where it's not like an audible read where the person is reading, Amma went to the store. No, this is actually Amma in character saying, oh, mommy, I'm going to the store. So it's really just the dialogue of the story being like you're watching a movie with a dialogue.
Okay.
But it's in audio form.
Okay.
And the trick is the background noises tells the listener where that person is. For example, if you're in Mokola Market, for example,
right,
the background noises is that of Mokola Market. And it's very immersive. And if you do this in series, people are really sticking to that.
Really?
That is the fastest growing type of podcasts right now.
Really?
Yes.
Never heard of that.
So if you have very good storytelling, I would urge you to look into it. And once you do, if you're interested, give me a shout.
I'll let you know. But you're gonna tell me a little bit more about that. I have never.
Yeah, it's I kind of started paying attention to it about maybe a month ago.
Oh, really?
So it's basically storytelling. It's dialogue and storytelling.
Okay.
It's just really well thought of in terms of sound, in terms of putting the listener into that place and using their imagination to imagine what is happening at the moment.
Okay.
So let's say if you have a series, a story that's about 4 hours long,
right, and
you split it into maybe a podcast series, of 4 different episodes.
Okay, interesting. Is it like a audio, like a theater, like audio theater? We said Hörspiel.
I don't know if it's audio. I don't know what that is.
It's like a play on
the audio? Play is different. I've heard the play audio.
Okay.
And the play, they don't really use the background sound as this one is. This one is like, I listened to one and it was very, very weird how immersive it is, because they don't tell you that she's let's say she gets into her car and she goes to the store. They don't say that.
Okay,
but
you
hear
just
the
hear
door
that.
close.
Oh, I got
you hear her turn on the radio.
Okay.
You hear her put on her phone, call someone, and then say, "Oh, I'm just popping to the store to buy some eggs."
Oh, okay.
And then go into the store, hear the store music saying, "Welcome to Aldi," blah, all those things. So it's like you're following the story.
Interesting.
And it's an immersive story. And the one I was listening to, I guess, was about relationships, and was about a woman whose husband was cheating on her. So you feel her feelings and you feel her what's going on at the moment. But if you can translate that somehow to children and give them something like that to listen to, and their imaginations and everything, it's a wonderful experience.
Interesting. Yeah, we should talk on that. Interesting. Yeah.
I've just recently heard it, so I'm looking into it actually.
Okay, cool. Sounds great. Sounds great. Yeah. But you were gonna tell me something. You said something like
yes, before we go, our lives crossed in a very weird way, and you didn't know about it. So,
Okay.
my daughter goes to a nursery in Winterhude.
Yes.
Last summer, they sent out inviting parents to what they wanted to call Africa Day. And my daughter is the two of them are there now, and there's two mixed race boys.
Okay.
Aside from that, they're the only black kids in the school.
Okay.
So the nursery did something which I commended. They contacted us to find out what they can do during African Day and what they can't do during African Day. So specifically me and my wife. So we went there, we spoke to them, and I basically said to them, firstly, Africa Day is very broad. So you're going to have to somehow figure out how to kind of represent a lot of the countries in Africa and not just term it Africa Day, because Africa is 52 or so countries. So I gave them a few pointers and the meeting was very good.
Okay.
A few days later, they cancelled. And I learned that you were supposed to come and read to the kids.
I remember, you saying that. I think it's rained.
And it became a problem because when they cancelled it, the parents' group chat blew up.
I know. I was wondering because she was like, it's in the tent. And then I was like, well, but we can do it somewhere else. And I remember there was another black lady, Magda, who was supposed to do, I think, like muffins or something. Because I talked to her, I'm like, can you bring muffins and all that? And I'm like, okay, well, if you cancel it, sure, that's okay. I love that so many Germans, white Germans, are trying to give the hand and do all that. But at the same time, there are so many. They're so very sensitive
and fair.
They're very sensitive, and then you have to be careful because they get scared. Oh, I don't want to get shitstorm, and maybe I'm doing this and I'm doing that. I'm like, just chill. I mean, we're all here to learn. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. And if you say something or do something is not right, we're just gonna talk about it, and it's over.
Keep it moving.
Right. Instead, they just block it. No, I don't want. No, we can't do. Sorry. For that.
So I heard you were gonna read to the kids, and
that would be nice.
So our paths crossed, but
we didn't get
to see each other. You didn't know about this either. So I said to my wife, when you come here, I'll tell you today.
Yeah.
That was the reason why it was
Oh,
canceled.
see, I didn't know that. See.
Awesome. So what is your vision for your publishing company, for your books, and also because I kind of understand that sometimes when you're into a certain section of media, it gets to a point you try to explore the other sections of media. So what's your vision, your ultimate vision, if you could kind of dream as big as you could? What's your vision for?
My vision, well, for myself, for my life, or for the publishing company?
For the publishing company. I guess you can add some things about what you want for your life.
My vision. Well, of course, I just want to keep on doing great books. Of course, that's the main, being able to reach as much people as possible. And of course, I want to be counted as a referent publishing company. Like when somebody think about a certain book, like, of course, we always going to be diversity, in Germany. But when somebody thinks about certain topics that they know, oh yeah, we're just going to go to gratitude because, my topics are, gratitude. And I said this at the beginning. And when people understand that and it stays in the brain, this is where I think, that we have accomplished a lot.
To be a household name.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, that sounds good.
And I think it's doable. It's possible.
Very doable,
yeah, because of course I see all these big major publishing company, doing the Vielfalt, the diversity books now, of course, because they see we buy it. We buy it. And I remember those days when they would say black people were not are not bankable, you know, and we have to prove, of course, we're bankable. We spent money.
We spend a lot of money.
We spend a lot of money, you
Yeah.
know. And I think once we understand that we are very powerful and we spend a lot of money because we make money, and I think this is where we need to get, you know, because we spend it anyway. You know, so we have to be very, you know, proud and say, you know, proud and bold and say, and bold and then go out there.
We're a market worth targeting.
Oh yeah, definitely. More than people you would think they're more. No, we are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Dayan, I knew it would be a good conversation, and I'm not disappointed at all.
Thank you.
I appreciate what you do, because in a lot of ways you've affected my daughter's life. So you've made my job that little bit easier.
Thank you.
So
thank you.
I really do appreciate what you do. I wish you all the best. I would love at some point to have you back on the podcast or work with you at some point. Hopefully our paths cross again, but this time something comes out of it.
Yeah. And we got to see each other and talk with each other for the first time. So definitely we're going to stick in.
Exactly. So thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
We will keep in touch.
Thank you for having me. It was beautiful. Thanks.
Awesome.